another week of EGF Collegiate Overwatch action. I'm Shiny, joined by the wonderful Spectron to bring you the start of our games tonight. We have two of them coming up for you on the EGF Overwatch channel. And first, we're going to have Rochester Institute of Technology taking on the reigning champions, the University of Delaware.
Yeah, gonna be the first time we get to see the University of Delaware play this season. They got a rather lucky bye in the last game. Rochester Institute of Technology have played only the once, got a loss there. And of course, that's our first game of the day. After this, we will have the University of Tennessee going up against Connecticut. The Volunteers against the Huskies, sorry. So, even after the action from this game subsides, there's still more Overwatch action for you guys to feast your eyes on. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Oh, so much Overwatch to come this evening, as well as on our other channel. We got a ton of games to be played tonight, but let's focus on the one that we have on hand. We have, of course, Rochester Institute of Technology has been in EGF for quite some time. I remember them specifically from last season. Put on a pretty decent performance when it came to that. They didn't end up making it to the playoffs, but Delaware Esports on the other side, they won the whole dang thing. They're the current reigning national championships for the EGFC Collegiate Overwatch division. So, there's high expectations for this team, of course, coming in to perform. We didn't get to see them last week, like you said, Spectron, with that forfeit win, and this is their first chance to really prove themselves.
I mean, you already have to bring into kind of contention, at least, the idea of being a little bit cold. You don't have that warm-up game to ease yourself into that action, and going against a team who did have a pretty strong placing last year as well, then you best hope they, hit the ground running, as it were. And of course, they won last year on a different meta with different players. So, I mean, you have to hope they've adapted best to this kind of new patch we're messing around with. Remember, it's going to have got rework Sombra, though I don't believe she's allowed right now. And the kind of buffs and nerfs that we got with Season 7. So, it'll be very similar to the playoffs patch we saw in Overwatch League. So, very likely lots of Symmetra, lots of Sojourn, lots of Sigma, kind of the heroes I expect to see. But on Busan, it might be a little bit harder to apply some of these heroes. Junker Queen, Zarya, all the way, baby, is what I have to guess.
If we see any Zarya today, I will be pretty surprised. All of those buffs that she originally received in Season 6 have since been reverted, so now she's kind of bad again. If you really want to go that deep into it, she's still viable, and I think that's the biggest thing to keep in mind for today, is that there isn't necessarily one composition or hero that is reigning above the rest right now. Everything is up for grabs. If you're good at it, go ahead and play it, and that is kind of the beauty of where the current Overwatch meta stands, and gives me a lot of excitement towards this match.
Oh, definitely. I do think, quick side note about the meta, I do think Sombra is a little bit strong right now. So I think some of the stronger teams especially, once they get their Sombras up and running, those Sombra Tracer dives are going to be even scarier than they were, early on in the season, early on in the year. So keep your eyes peeled for that, because it might just be Sombra Tracers ruining backlines again. Of course, no Sombra this week, so at least for a little while, we are safe. But I do think, also to piggyback a little bit off what you mentioned about the Zarya, most of the buffs have been reverted, but she still does have the extra 2 seconds of cooldown on her projected bubble. So she still does get a lot more bubbles. And I do think that really was the big change, the one that catapulted her into being so strong. So I do think Seb and Ideal Warrior can play the Zarya if they want, but if they will, kind of a different question. Starting here on downtown, very wide open. Widowmakers used to love playing on this map, but by the looks of things, it's a Ryan comp from Rochester Institute of Technology. The Bastion may coming out like old style London Spitfire, and Delaware instead they're playing a poke comp with the Alari Baptiste. Plenty of spam damage coming at range. But if Rochester Institute of Technology, RIT, they manage to close the distance, get on top of, well, pretty much any member of Delaware, bar Ideal Warrior, then they'll have a very easy time collecting the kill.
Rochester Institute of Technology, they're running something similar to what a lot of teams have considered to be their comfort zone, which is kind of having this Reinhardt with the May Bastion, the classic role comp that was first introduced in Overwatch 1, where University of Delaware, on the other hand, is sitting at more of a poke style. They're going to benefit from playing at range, and like you said, Spectrum, what this is going to come down to is, can RIT close the gap between teams? As University of Delaware have already begun rotations to the objective, and Viz finds themselves vulnerable to a bunch of spam damage. RIT down their Bastion, and the rest are going to fall shortly after, as University of Delaware got to the point first and didn't let RIT get anywhere near.
Yeah, not to be tooting the alarm bells too early, but I'm very curious about why RIT has elected not to run the Symmetra. You saw them just running around through the open space in Delaware, but able to just free fire so much damage into them, and they didn't have the mobility to kind of avoid it. A Symmetra TP would have alleviated all of that and allowed them the verticality to reach, for example, Hyper on the high ground, but no change. Also, over to the Symmetra, sorry, is Foliage, so even more poke coming through from RIT. We'll see if it is enough here.
University of Delaware, they're sitting down on the objective. Nothing too stressful, but there goes Biz once again. I mean, you have to be dealing with Hyper, TVD Man, and Syrup on this high ground. When you try to go through these chokes, meet ideally Warrior along the way. This is a very difficult composition to have to fight through to get the wins.
I really do have to agree with that there. It's so hard to scale your Reinhardt into all this damage, and while it's not impossible, it's just so difficult to execute that it might be better swaps just full swapping over to a dive comp and just ruining, for example, Syrup's day. They're going to be sticking on it. They do have the window to try and leverage here. Rescue Toast also very close to the beat, and with the window popped early, might have a chance here.
Opportunity to make something happen, but RIT, the window is so far up. What value can they get? Foliage does get that first elimination, taking out their Sojourn counterpart. Be the rest of the ultimates to come in, making the difference for the day. The sound barrier is there. The Sunstruck, couple players hit. Oh, all of that everyone help that Rescue Toast provided kept their players alive, but the problem on the high ground spectrum is yet to be dealt with. Foliage coming up to take one out along the way, but the damage has already been dealt. University of Delaware, while they've lost the percentage on the point, have managed to hang around for quite some time, to the point it's only Seb that's holding on to the objective with 3 players mercilessly having him in his crosshair.
I mean, yes, I think the idea that RIT have is that just basically as long as they can reach the point, they'll win with their superior point presence by just being able to hold shield and hoping that Viz and Foliage can get a kill. That's just not working out for them so far. The supports, especially of Delaware, are just pumping so much damage in that there's really nothing they can do when the shield breaks. They get taken down, and now last fight territory, RIT is going to have to put up the clutch.
Got the Earth Shatter from Seb, and that is probably going to be your biggest win condition heading into this fight. You need to be keeping an eye out. Syrup is on the high guard. TVD Man as well. That's the main support. Go on, TVD Man and Syrup working together. The DPS duo not allowing RIT anywhere near this first objective. This was a rough start for RIT. Despite the composition they were rolling out with, they never got a good fight in.
I'm really not in love with the idea to go over to the Sojourn. I think that it leaves your composition being a weird halfway house in between kind of poke and brawl, and so you end up getting the worst of both worlds. You can't just survive on point, you can't force the University of Delaware to come to you, but you also can't beat them in those long-range duels, and so it ended up you were losing kind of whatever you ended up trying. So RIT back to the drawing board for them. They're going over to something more or less similar to what Delaware were running. They got the Sim TP flash going straight out of spawn, the Lucio speed as well, but Rescue Toast and Foliage could still get swapped. But Delaware, they've actually over to the Sigma, and this is a change I really like. Going to be taking a little bit less damage, but in exchange going to be dealing so much more damage, and of course that Gravitic Flux will clutch out a fight all on its own.
This is great University right now. Blue Hens want to continue to play at a range, and you can. TVD Man and Syrup have been putting in work to make this a viable strat, and Rochester are just trying to close that gap once again. You see them moving around with Rescue Toast, escorting them along the point, but I mean, the Blue Hens are just running away. They don't want to take this fight close, and if they don't have to, that's exactly what's going to happen. But when Seb moves towards the close fight, I mean, you're walking into all of this poke that has been sitting and waiting. You, Delaware, are constantly on the upper hand because they are prepared, they are ready. Anything that RIT has to throw at them.
And if Lucio isn't being used for consistent engage, disengage cycles, then unfortunately he just doesn't do that much in a mid-range, or in the neutral, sorry. So Rescue 2 is unfortunately just being outvalued by Hyper there. The Illari damage just able to convert the kill far faster. And again, back to drawing board for RIT. They have basically no space, no ults, and so a drive fight is going to what they need to cap to break this fight open. Sorry, but Foliage goes down early.
They just can't get in. They can't get this full fight that they've been wanting this entire time. I mean, the staggers are going to continue to come through with University of Delaware. They're sitting behind the Sigma shield and you're just essentially giving free reign to your team. There isn't damage mitigation on the side of RIT, so they're banking on moving in quick, using the speed boost, but they haven't had the opportunity yet. It's a nice javelin to open things up, the teleport in the back. They wanted to get the ambush, but Hyper is sitting there ready and waiting as a Sunstruck on it. Everyone has to force out the sound barrier. It punishes Piper and Mako. This is the first time RIT have been a section of winning, but like you said, there it is! That Gravitic Flux. It can win a fight all on its own, and I'll do Warrior stepping up to be the hero.
Ideal Warrior with an ideal Flux. It looks like the tides were turning finally in RIT's favor, but the Sigma steps up and turns them right back. A big Flux catching two. Primary fire for the third, and RIT now 70% against them. Really running out of options and time here.
This is difficult. I mean, you have the photon barrier to push in, maybe get some sort of speed going, but you're walking straight into this tack visor and overclock. The University of Delaware, they've just been sitting on this all game long. They take the separate angles, the barrier does something to help prevent that, but what do? Your tank has gone down. Biz is shortly to follow after, and just like that, the blue hens are yet to split up. They want to take this point in such a dominant fashion, Spectrion, not even allowing RIT to set a foot on the objective, closing out map 1 of Busan.
Yeah, 17% accrued across 2 control points. Quite a showing for University of Delaware in their first appearance here on the EGFC circuit. I have to say, I mean, we said before the game, maybe there's a chance they're cold, maybe they're not warmed up going into this season, but I think we can pretty safely put those thoughts to rest after this, because this was one-sided.
They're the reigning champions, Spectron, and they're the reigning champions for a reason. Whether some players have come and gone, that is inevitable within the collegiate scene. But you still have that core, you have the coaching lineup to come through, and University of Delaware, with what they just did on Busan right now, RIT tried so many different looks. They tried to go for more of a counter composition, but the proactiveness that University of Delaware displayed throughout that entire time, that it prevented a lot of these larger fights. There were so few team battles that RIT was able to take because these staggers came in, these one-off eliminations that just were not prevented.
Yeah, it's really hard to disagree with that. Unfortunately, a bit of a lack of discipline cost RIT many fair fights and just gave a mass advantage to Delaware when they did get picked off trying to kind of rotate, trying to get into any sort of effective range. Even when they are playing that Orisa comp, they're still going to have a much easier time at close range than the Sigma, but unfortunately not able to get there. Going to Para-ESA, though, is going to be very interesting because, a lot of these, very immobile comps we were seeing out of University of Delaware are going to be a little bit harder to play. Verticality, much more a factor. So maybe a chance to see some Doomfist, some Winston perhaps, and a move away from the very poke-heavy compositions we saw all throughout Busan.
The thing is, though, poke is still pretty viable when it comes to Para-ESA. So University of Delaware, they're going to have the option to keep with what they're doing or change it up if that's what they would really like to do. The other thing we need to mention is RIT. Whether they start on the attack or the defense here, it needs to be brought up that the biggest problem that they were running into were the rotations that they were making. They clearly had plans for how it would go along, but when you lose a player when you're moving around the map, or you take too long to rotate and suddenly you're losing more time than what it's actually been worth, that's where we need to ask questions. Para-ESA, unfortunately, is going to amplify that issue more. When you're looking at how that map is structured in general, high grounds are the name of the game. You need to have that verticality, like you just said. If you're not going to have that verticality, you need to have the speed, some sort of plan to move through the map. And if RIT, I honestly think, if they pull out some sort of dive, if they have a Doomfist, a Winston, maybe even a Diva that you have in your back pocket, I mean, this is the spot to pull it out. Now you can actually take these team fights that you've been wanting to since map 1.
Yeah, very hard to disagree with that. So RIT, I believe, have chosen the attacking side. So I'm not sure I'm in love with it. I do think attack is normally the harder side. I think defense maybe a little bit easier just because you do have that space. But that does mean that hopefully they do have a plan cooked up at least, because attacking on Para-ESA requires that. It's so procedural how you have to take space attacking. And from what we've seen from them so far, then they definitely have to have iterated, to have improved just a little bit if they're confident going into this particular half. University of Delaware, I really like what they're playing. The Brigitte Baptiste is going to be so hard. Yeah. Any composition that RIT plays to pressure the Baptiste, that means all the sustain, all the value can constantly be going in towards the rest of the team. And RIT, looks like they're playing Symmetra Bastion, London Spitfire comp, baby. I do like this, but if they execute it correctly, that's going to be the real difference between winning and losing, because this comp is so hard to play.
This is just brutal. Brutal to have to come through. And I do like that Foliage this time is staying on the Symmetra. So you have options with these teleports. You need to find a player to collapse upon. In this case, it was Hyper, had the shield bash to get out. And again, here comes the issue. The rotations, the plan is there, but when you lose one, you're back in an even situation. Being down your support is less than ideal, you could say, for a team that's on the attack. Now they're stuck in the back line. There's no way for Hyper to even get back to their team.
I liked it in the 1-for-1 trade, at least until Liam went down. Then it becomes a little bit more awkward. I mean, look at all the damage they're taking. Foliage is smattering around 50 HP, and yeah, it's just going to be one long stagger. RIT need to reset and fast, because if not, they're just burning time off the time bank. And I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
Foliage goes down almost 20 seconds, it feels like, after anyone else from RIT has. And the University of Delaware, they're going to be more than happy to take this extra time bank. They're not even playing the forward high grounds. They're just playing the back one over the point and waiting for RIT to walk into them to punish a mistake they see. And so far, that's been paying off so many dividends. University of Delaware in control.
They're just chilling. They're chilling on the high ground. That's all you really need to do. Syrup is basically a laser when it's coming to the Soldier 76. I see you out there with that tracking. I mean, the guy is crazy when it comes to it. And if you're going to play around how good Syrup has been doing with this, I mean, that's the entire plan. That's all you need to do. Down goes Liam the Helm, so you trade that one out, and a second one on to Biz. Rochester, they're getting the right idea. They're taking the high ground, the space that they want, but the trades from Delaware are simply too good. They're sitting there ready, waiting for the play that Rochester are seemingly telling their opponents what they're going to do.
Yeah, the space they're taking is so one-dimensional, though. You know, when they teleport into a position like that, they need to get the kills, otherwise they will get traded out because there's no cover, because they have nowhere to run to. And that's exactly what happens. They do have some space, and the Flux from Ideal Warrior is lurking, but there's a real chance here.
A couple of ultimates. That Matrix very helpful from Liam. Helium, I do like that name, by the way. Shout out to you for the creativity. That doesn't get as much value through the window. You get the Sojourn out of the fight and can finally get up close and personal. There you go. Ideal Warrior going it down. That's the perfect pick-off. No shield for anyone else to hide behind. It took a little bit for Rochester to get going, but once they had these ultimate Spectron, they came up with that plan to win this first fight.
Hyper die mid-ult as well? Either way, that's at least one ult they're going to be really wanting back, and Ideal Warrior goes over to the Orisa instead. You know, copying Boston Uprising with how they like to approach these Rein comps. We'll see if they can execute it the same, but those spins, those spears can really do some damage against the Reinhardt. Pinning in, though, is Sebi so deep.
What? I mean, I appreciate the aggression, but you're pretty much sandwiched in that alleyway between a Soldier and an Orisa who really wants you dead. I mean, that's about where you want to be right now. These staggers, they hurt bad, and it gives the opportunity for their opponents. University of Delaware can now set up on this high ground, making their next task of approach very challenging.
And if you found the first point parity so hard to attack, then second can be even worse. 3 lanes, and none of them are particularly forgiving. With this teleport, it's going to be a little bit easier to walk around, but they're going to need to put some real thought into this. Foliage has to place it well, because if not, it'll be very easy for Ideal Warrior to punish it.
They're looking for it up into this room, and it gets there, but there is that javelin spin. Nobody is knocked down from my knowledge, but it forces the immortality field. This Foliage all incredibly low, so the push is a slow one to start. The payload not really going to move. You need to be taking these team fights as a full 5 team. So RIT, they're going to let the payload be, try to focus on where these players are located. There's another teleporter up onto the opposite high ground. It doesn't catch any players, though. Delaware are... I'm really starting to question that. Do they know where they're going at this point? They're so far away from anybody else. I mean, the University of Delaware, they're playing Ring Around the Rosie. They're staying as far away as possible. But Hyper gets caught out by 2 swings of the hammer that didn't look like they were going to hit. Earthshadow doesn't find much, but there's still players on the high ground. This long mission that Rochester is spending all their time doing was failed. TVD Man and Mako were yet to be disturbed, and what took so much time off the clock got no value at all.
I don't know about you, Tiny, but I was not told I'd be casting Portal today. Because this is not Overwatch.
No.
Foliage took, what, 3-4 TPs to maneuver around the second area of Paraiso, but never really able to set his team up in a position to really get much of anything done, and that's just time burn off the bank, down to 1:30. RIC are going to need to get something going fast because they don't have time to build into any more of their ults. They have their 3 check marks accumulated now, and that's going to be it for the rest of this half, really.
I mean, this is a very important fight coming up for RIT. Need to find value out of your ultimates. If Fizz goes down, that's a big chunk of the damage that you're working with. Now that's not at your disposal. And you're once again crowded in a room. They need to decide whether they commit the sound barrier or photon barrier to rush out or just back off and wait for Fizz, which seems to be the better option.
I do like this. It does at least mean you have one last good fight. But it looks like they're trying to get the stagger kills. The Eraser all popped as well. The tag fight putting in so much damage. The Lucio beat is not enough, and Hyper gets the first kill.
Helium going down. I mean, that's fight over. Rochester, you're not winning this next engagement. You need to cut your losses where they're at. Save the resources you currently have for one final attempt with only 40 seconds on the clock.
These fights have been going so quickly, and yes, they do have one last attempt, but it's not going to be a good one. University of Delaware can push up if they want, take the space, and force RIT to fight for every inch, but instead, they're comfortable. It's absolutely lazy almost in the positions they're in because they don't need to lift a finger. They know all the onus is on RIT, and so far that's been working out so well for Delaware.
They just rotate across the high grounds. I mean, you got Mako, Hyper, and TVD Man all have ways that they can just move around. Maybe you're Hyper, you can just fly away. That's everybody. And with the Captain Sun, the boom comes through, and you Warrior knocking him off the back. Hyper taking care of the rest. That's a double kill for the Yachty. Still looking for more on the Lucio, going to claim it. What a defense from University of Delaware, really countering out their opponent's strategies.
Yeah, I do think with how the Symmetra works, there's always going to be a lot more thought put into the teleporters than meets the eye when you're watching the professionals do it. And unfortunately, I don't think we saw the same amount of thought coming through from Foliage and the rest of RIT. Unfortunately, there was not enough planning for how Delaware would attempt to punish those TPs, and so we saw that just then, the attempt to teleport onto Hyper. I mean, what else are they going to do but pop this, the Captive Sun, catch essentially 5 players with it, and escape as well because you flew. Like, it's very, very unfortunate, but the attempt to TP, at least there, just put the rest of RIT in a... essentially served them up on a silver platter for all of Delaware to capitalize on. An Ideal Warrior managed to spear one off the map, and then from there, the Captive Sun, the Sunstruck effect, did the rest. So, going to be a stop at about 90 meters, about a fight and a half, one out for RIT, and University of Delaware onto their own attacking side. It's going to be rough. I do quite like, however, the move from RIT over to the Winston comp. Oh, Sombra is in.
Yep, Sombra will be being played today. I believe that is in the rulebook. So this is our first view of the reworked Sombra in EGFC, at least in this match. Foliage picking that one up. And this is going to be very interesting how this is integrated into this composition. We know that University of Delaware, they want to run this more poke. Interesting enough, Syrup on the Junkrat. I will mention that in a second. You see how well this fares into what Foliage has planned. Ideally, you're looking to get a hack, follow up with the virus, and get out before you take too much damage going through. But the main benefit this provides is that scouting, but not if you get hit with a random nade. The zoning is there. University of Delaware thwarted Rochester's plan before they even knew what it was.
Yeah, not even looking like there was a plan for Foliage, just existing around the map, but double pipes out of Invis. And I mean, what do you even do about that? There is probably a chance for a recontest here, but at least 2 ticks going to be given over to Delaware, and all the positioning that RIC had absolutely gone.
I mean, it's all gone. What do? Can you get back onto the point? You cannot. Don't be trying to walk with a monkey into a Junkrat spamming down main. I doubted you, Syrup. I'm sorry. I will not do that again.
And now it's essentially an open road into the finish line. RIT have one more chance to try and get a contest going, and that they will be able to do. You know, Winston, Soldier, all being fast heroes in that, but they have none of the defending space that they would normally have coming into second. They're going to have to retake all of that before they have a chance to fight the point, and I'm not even sure they're going to have time for that, with the point beginning to roll into the golden box of victory. And look how far away ults are as well for RIT. It'll be very rough to try and get a stop here.
You're looking for some form of miracle to come in. I mean, like, look at this. Like, what do? There's so much damage. Seb doesn't stand a chance in the front line. You can't take a dive, especially into 5 players that are sitting and waiting. This Riptire now, if this gets one elimination, this is as good as done. The payload is nearly there. Liam Helium, not having a great time, exploded into a pile of shredded grandma, and that is the payload rolling in. University of Delaware showing a dominant 2-0 start to week 2.
Dominant's really the only word you can call this. Delaware look absolutely in control. Every fight that happens, it happens on their terms, when they want, where they want, and so far they're winning out every single one of them, it feels like. And I mean, look at this ult from Hyper.
Beautiful.
Just the perfect reaction to the play RIT makes, and it crushes their entire push, essentially single-handedly. Humongous individual output from the Illari pair, and, you know, that was part of why we now see University of Delaware going up 2-0 here.
Yep, they're up 2-0 at that match point. I mean, this is the time for RIT to take a step back, figure out what they need to do. I want to give them some credit, though, for the creativity that they've had. They are switching their comps. They're realizing things aren't working and are changing it up. I want to give them credit. They want to do it, but they're yet to strike gold yet. University of Delaware still very much in control of this series, and they have one more map to start turning it around. But before we get there, we are going to head to a quick break, let these teams get oriented for map number 3. So we'll see you in just a few minutes. our Week 2 EGFC Overwatch matchup. The University of Delaware is falling so far ahead of Rochester Institute of Technology as they prepare to go up on match points. Both our control and hybrid selections heavily went towards the Blue Hens, where RIT, this is their last chance to start that comeback.
And if you're going to start that comeback anywhere, I would love to see it on Flashpoint. Of course, Lucio is so prevalent in this mode, so it's going to be really, really hard for the University of Delaware to try and force their Baptiste Ilari backlines, the one they really love to play, and they've been forcing it throughout the series so far. New Junk City, though, it's going to be a little bit harder to play. The early space that you get just by value of the Lucio speed is so, so valuable, as well as rotating quickly in between those flashpoints when they do finally flip. Should be too much to pass up them. But, with University of Delaware, they could just stick to it. Either way, I would say it tips the scales a little bit in the favor of RIT, but whether it's enough to start the comeback, start the reverse sweep, then only time will tell. Another advantage, I guess, of New Junk City is that it, normally lends itself a little bit less to the kind of comps that I think Delaware would like to run with a Lucio, with, Orisa, with Junker Queen. And it lends itself a little bit more to playing really fast comps that Winston that they teased, I think, on Paraiso, so that's another tick in their favor.
Mm-hmm. You couldn't have asked for a better map to be number 3 here, just with Flashpoint in general. The nature of it is the closest we're gonna get to where Rochester have seemingly been in their comfort zone. They want to play with this Reinhardt, the Orisa, more of this close-up brawl style where Delaware, they're the complete and total opposite. In theory, when it comes down to these matchups, one is significantly better than the other, depending on when and where these fights are being taken. So far, University of Delaware have been heavily favored when it came to Paradiso and Busan, even at certain points. So you're looking at this next Flashpoint selection. This is your best chance at evening that playing field and getting yourselves on the board. RIT still coming off that loss from week number 1, and it would be great for them to at least get a map here in this series.
Yeah, really hard to disagree with that. At the end of the day, even if the map doesn't end up counting, being the difference maker, then a little bit of confidence really will take you a long way. I do think it's something that, as the Overwatch community in general, it's something we underrate a little bit. Confidence, the intangibles, those things outside the game, the things more than just your rank, your hero pool, your compositions your team can play. The confidence to come into a game, to know that while we may have lost, we went down swinging, and being able to take that into the next match, that really can make a massive difference for teams, especially in longer format competitions such as this. I have to say, though, there is a substitution by the looks of things in for University of Delaware. Syrup's over to Flex support, and Carter on the Genji.
Alrighty then, we're switching some things up. Alright, University of Delaware, this is either a sign of we're really confident, or we just have some players that are really good. I mean, Syrup is absolutely insane when it came to that Soldier 76, so the Baptiste, basically better Soldier, in my opinion. University of Delaware, they made the changes necessary, and they want to run out with this Brawl composition, which RIT, they're beating it with them, that Junker Queen. We haven't seen this look from them so far. It's something brand new, but Liam Helium being the first to go down. I mean, the fact that these fights end nearly as soon as they start Spectron is absolutely brutal.
University of Delaware feels like have just had cheats mode on. They have full server hacked, and they can constantly see the comp that RIT is playing and come out with this perfect counter. The Reinhardt can absolutely run over Seb in the 1v1, but this time it's just Carter who lands a quick headshot, takes care of the Baptiste, and early control established for Delaware. Seb takes the Rhine mirror. Oh, this is something I'm excited to see. Ooh. Honorable Reinhardt